Inequality itself, especially in the society, had been prominent and controversial nowadays, as education evolves into something that suited the critical minds of the students who wants change for a cause, leading to various social reforms through activism and deviancy to degrade such belief of exploitation, specifically those who criticize the authorities of the state. In this presentation, we will be discussing about the infamous Imelda Marcos, who was currently being in a controversy to the Philippine nation, as she was found guilty of graft, but still no warrant of arrest since November 2018. So the question is, should Imelda Marcos be granted with mitigation and reconsideration to her criminal liability? The Philippines' First Lady and the wife of the late Ferdinand Marcos was found guilty of graft because she was accused by the Sandigan Bayan for the illegal funneling of $200 million to a Swiss foundation back in the 1970s. Multiple charges were filed against her, yet pre-annulment and reconsiderations occurred despite the heinous act done against the nation for roughly 30 years. Several defenses for her were stated, such as from Oscar Albayalde, chief of the Philippine National Task Force, who said to consider her age and health first before making actions. If the concern about the welfare of the offender should be considered first, then why an elderly named Elmer Cordero, a 72-year-old jeepney driver without any comprehensive restraining process, was kept behind bars amid the ongoing pandemic COVID-19? Will it not increase the probability of infecting detainees inside a congested prison? The law itself had presented the over 70 policy, in which it contributes to the mitigation of one's criminal liability. However, this is abused by political figures and rarely seen to the lower class citizens' rights against restraining orders. The concept itself advocates that justice is only for the rich, deprives the credibility and morality of these political authorities, hence giving these criminals the liberal possibility of being cautious to their steps to avoid getting remanded. Mitigation due to of 70 above. According to Manglinong of Philippine Star, the Philippine National Police Task Force led by Chief Oscar Albayalde said that they will not take actions considering the health and age status of Imelda Marcos, as she is already 89 years old by that time, increasing the delay for the permissions from the Supreme Court judge's warrant of arrest back in November 2018. This is true as based on the revised Penal Code Act No. 3815, Article 13, which cited that the offender is under 18 years of age or over 70 years. In the case of minor, he shall be proceeded against in accordance with the provision of Article 80. However, the issue is that the excuse of considering the age first over action has only been seen with political figures, but not with the lower class citizens. Take an example from the report from Kayabya Bufuan News, which stated that an elderly Elmer Cordero, a 72-year-old jeepney driver, was imprisoned by the task force for violating quarantine rules while he and his fellow drivers protested for the jeepney outpacing, especially with the strict guidelines for the youngsters and elders to stay only at home. The prison itself he is in was described by his lawyer Vijay Topacio as somewhat congested, in which Cordero begs the policeman to chain him on a chair instead of crowding with the inmates inside the cells because of his fear that he might catch the virus. Unfortunately, his request was refused. Another evidence of justice inequality is the bold Sinas Mañanitas. A report from Gavilan of Rappler stated that despite the ongoing strict quarantine protocol, his 55th birthday party took place that held at Camp Bagong Diwa, accompanied with a mass gathering beyond the rules during pandemic. However, senior officials quickly defended him, along with President Duterte, who said hindi niya kasalanan kung may mangharana sa kanya sa birthday niya. At kung yun namang nagsasabi na nakikitang hindi nakamask, syempre, may merienda yan, may pagkain. Alangan namang kainin nila pati yung mask. Hindi tanggalin nila. Kainan yun eh. Showing intimate compassion and calling him as good officer as accordance to the report of Gotinga 2020. The government and its administration show no restriction with its fellow political partners. Moreover, a tad of hypocrisy in exterminating the political corruption and exploitation displayed by the president, in which he further defended that even when the critics say about law is the law, he replied that it is up to him to decide on that. The senior age of Marcos seems to be used as a way to halt the issue of her atrocious acts against the Philippine nation, adding more for its utility that is in favor for the elitists. Corrupt politicians have the advantage to counter these accusations, leaving the proletariats vulnerable to exploitations and manipulations. The solution for this kind of issue is the Revised Penal Codes Act No. 3815. Given the fact that the Supreme Court had left the case for Imelda Marcos pending for 2 years, which is specifically in due process, the penal code itself and its circumstances of mitigating criminal liability must be revised once again. To avoid such further complexity, the Chapter 3, Article 13 must not allow the mitigation due to 70 above policy. The concept itself just prolonged the process and its conditions, which could lead to failure of restraining the underlying motive of the criminal. Just like Juan Ponce Enrile, a report from Inquiry.net, a former senator of the office of Ombudsman, who was accused of plundering a 172.8 million pesos that have connections with the infamous pork barrel scam way back at 2014, and really was 90 years old by that time. So it is safe to assume that even old-aged people could do such a heinous act against the nation. Another thing is to remove the bail petition. With the ongoing political corruption up to this day, the exploitators who, with their immense financial status, have a possibility of using their hidden plundered money to fill up the charges against them, thus letting them roam around once again with a high possibility of corruption with their cautious move of exploitation. The concept itself just advocates the notion of justice is only for the rich and must not be normalized nor tolerated.